Friday Night Football rocks. We got 8 college football games here this Friday night for college football week 1. I'm going to run through all of them. It is another episode of Balls, Sacks, and a Hardwood. Yeah, for those of you that missed that, a little bit of a rebrand. This is a throwback to 2017, a college podcast I was on with a bunch of buddies. Should be a good time. Definitely something that fits the narrative here. But like I said, 8 games to go through tonight. We're going to kick this thing off right away. Got no time to waste. Michigan State laying 18.5 against Western Michigan. 54.5 is the total here. As dangerous as Western was last year, Sky Moore is now a Kansas City Chief. Caleb Ellerby has graduated on from football or is playing in the one of a dozen leagues that have sprouted up over the last few years. Now, if those two were playing, I'd be like, all right, well, look out, because Michigan State's secondary was terrible. They literally ranked last in the country at 340 yards per game. On offense, they're going to return Peyton Thorne and his top target, Jaden Reed. Both of those guys are going to have a much more expanded role as Kenneth Walker has moved on to the NFL. Now, Walker does have some replacements. They get a couple of transfers in Jarek Broussard and Jalen Berger. Broussard, he had some experience, rushed for over 1,500 yards at Colorado in 2 seasons. Now, Berger, I know a little bit more about. He was at Wisconsin. He was a transfer. Really, it came down to he couldn't handle the thought of splitting time with a 17-year-old running back in Braylon Allen. Well, joke's on him, because Braylon Allen has a good chance to go to New York here in the next couple of years to possibly hold up a Heisman. And Jalen Berger is going to be splitting carries at Michigan State. So, not too worried about that. Yes, a little salty. I didn't really like how that guy played. Anyways, both teams are in a little bit of a transitional period. Mel Tucker's Spartans, though, they got a really good taste of victory last year. I do lean the over, however. I don't think Michigan State's going to fix that secondary overnight. That should allow a Bronco offense that, yes, is going to need a little bit of changing and tweaking, but at its base is still a good team. I'm going to lean over here. It's 54.5. Game number 2 is going to be Indiana laying 3 against Illinois. This is my favorite game of the night, 46-point total. Shout out to that Big Ten total right there at 46. We are so back. Feels great. Also, shout out to the Illini. They did exactly what I said they'd do last weekend, 38-6 victory over Wyoming. Beautiful balance of offense and defense. And on the offensive side of the ball, it was great to see some good quarterback play for them. So they rushed and passed for over 200 yards. They dominated Wyoming. They didn't hold them to only 6 points, but they only had 1 third down conversion and 12 tries. They literally kicked their ass up and down the field. It was a great bet. I'll say it myself. I'll pat myself on the back. Needed that, but we only ended up 2-2. Great. So let's talk the first taste of conference play. Let's be honest. I'm a little surprised to see the number. Vegas obviously gives the home team 3 extra points, so you got to look at it that way. Indiana, coming off their worst season in a decade, finished 2-10 overall, did not win a game in the Big Ten. The offense, anemic to say the least, scored less than 17 points per game. However, to their credit, they went balls to the walls in the transfer portal. They brought in a new quarterback, a couple of running backs as well. As of Wednesday night and now Thursday morning, I honestly haven't checked, but Tom Allen hadn't named a starter. I'm going to expect Missouri transfer Connor Bazelak to get the nod. Talked about him a little bit on Thursday's podcast. I don't really care. IU struggles don't end on offense. The defense was responsible for 385 yards per game and over 33 points per game. They were among one of the worst in the country in forcing turnovers. They got to the quarterback just 15 times in 12 games. New defensive coordinator Chad Witt, he's going to have his hands full with this bunch. I'm going to play the Illinois Illini money line here, plus 130. Going to put 1.5 units on it, brings home just under 2 units. I think they're going to continue to show how heavily improved they are. And IU, they're in a bad spot as the alarm goes off, just like Hoop Drunk, man. Nothing changes. So, game, like I said, we're going to do Illinois money line there. Next game is going to be TCU laying just under a touchdown, 13.5 at Colorado. Total in that one is 55.5. Now, both of these teams sucked last year. I mean, we weren't horrible, but they were really disappointing teams. The Horned Frogs, they're going to have a new head coach on the sideline for the first time in this millennium. Sonny Dykes is taking over for Gary Patterson. Dykes, he's another one of these air raid guys. Should inject some energy into an offense that scored just 28.7 points per game last year. He's going to have quarterback Max Dugan which is in his 4th year at TCU. Solid dual threat guy. He's had over 1,500 yards in his career. Should fit nicely into Dyke's offensive scheme that he's got going on. What's even more important, he's retaining his top 4 targets and a couple of upperclassmen running backs. That's a big thing in college football. These guys, and that's why the transfer portal is going to be interesting to see how quickly can these guys acclimate to new quarterbacks, because at the end of the day, they're 19, 20, 21 years old, and they've only known a few different quarterbacks in their life. However, we'll see how that works out for them. Like I said, I love having all those guys back for TCU. Now, Colorado, 5 straight losing seasons. There is little to no doubt Carl Durrell his hourglass is running out. They have not officially named a quarterback, which isn't a great sign. Now, whether it's Brendan Lewis or JT Shrout, nothing really excites me. Shrout coming off of the injury that knocked him out for all of last year. The offense, they average just 18.8 points per game and average 246 yards per game. On top of that, there are 2 receivers in the top half of the depth chart that are going to be out with an injury. I'm going to lean under in this one with so much uncertainty. Duke laying 7 against Temple. Total is 51. This is going to be like spit shining a turd. It's the Owls, they were bad. Duke was bad. Owls last year, they lost 7 straight to close out the season. They averaged 16.3 points per game on the year, and they allowed 37.5 points per game. I'm a little surprised to see the number here, as Vegas really does think that they're going to hang around. They do have some skill guys returning in the backfield, but they're down a pair of starting linemen and both of their top 2 receivers. Defensively, they lose their top tackler, but this team was terrible against the run in the past, so I don't think it matters. Now, Duke, I will give the Blue Devils credit. As much as I do hate Duke, they'd made an awesome hire. They took Mike Elko out of Texas A&M. He was the defensive coordinator. He's going to take over for a Duke defense, in total, the worst defense in the country. 518 yards per game, 40 points per game. Not a good bunch. He's going to have to really do well. He's coming over from Texas A&M. Texas A&M was a top 20 defense. Should be a huge improvement moving forward. Offensively, the Whiskey Dick Kings. They had 418 yards per game, but they couldn't score, just 22 points per game. They're going to replace their top skill guys, Gunnar Holberg and Jake Bobo, both hitting the transfer portal. Both sides are going to have experience in growing pains on offense, and I expect the Blue Devils, like I said, to play a lot better brand of defense. I'm going to play this one under for a half unit, so 51 is the total on that. I'm going to go under. Vatech next, -7.5 at Old Dominion. I had a double take on this one. I was a little shocked at the Hokies number, just 7.5 points, but upon further inspection, Vegas knows what they're doing here. Vatech loses their starting quarterback, top 2 receivers, and their top rusher from a 6-7 team a year ago. Not only that, their top back to start the year, Malachi Thomas, is actually out this week with an injury as well. Justin Fuente is in, the Penn State defensive coordinator, Fuente is out, and Brent Pry, the ex-Penn State defensive coordinator, is in. He's steering the ship, which, again, I do like that some of these teams are looking at the defensive side of the ball a little bit. Now, the defense, this defense, they're not great. They return 2 tacklers from a year ago, but the nice thing is they do return 3 out of 4 guys in their secondary, and Old Dominion likes to throw the ball. Speaking of the Monarchs, they are joining the Fun Belt this year. They're fresh off their second bowl appearance in school history. They're going to return 17 starters on both sides of the ball. The offensive rushing attack will see 4 of 5 offensive linemen back, along with the running back duo of Blake Watson and Lala Davis. Those guys put up 1,700 yards and 14 touchdowns combined. Now the passing game, Hayden Wolf is back. His top 2 targets, tight end Zach Kuntz, almost pronounced that wrong, and wide receiver Ali Jennings. Both, again, 1,700 yards and 10 touchdowns from those guys. This matchup, it was a 49-35 victory for Old Dominion back in 2018. I think the Hokies are a little bit on upset alert here. I'm going to take the points and run with Old Dominion for a unit in that one. Kansas, 27.5-point favorites against Tennessee Tech. How far we have come. Tech, they're going to be feel good heading into the year with Memphis transfer and 6-year quarterback Jeremiah Oatsville running the show. They are going to return all OVC selection, running back David Gist, as well as their top receiver. Now, they do need to upgrade. This team just averaged 28 points in the FCS last season, and the Jayhawks, on the other hand, are greatly improving. The Jayhawks, they finished their year with a win at Texas, a 3-point loss at TCU, and a 6-point loss at West Virginia. By Kansas standards, that's awesome. They are very, very excited about it. Jason Daniels is going to be running the show at quarterback. That dude showed in the last 3 games that he can play. He had 10 scores, I think 7 through the air, 3 on the ground. He's an absolute dual threat, brings in an element that Kansas hasn't seen in a long time, maybe ever. I don't remember the last time Kansas had a true dual threat guy there. I like what KU is doing as a program, but here's the deal. I'm not going to be caught dead betting Kansas, at least not yet. I like where they're headed, but this is going to be just a full pass for me because I will not bet Kansas. It's a little ridiculous. So, a couple of games to go through here. 2 games that I'm not really going to be moving a lot, just with some smaller schools here. EMU, Eastern Michigan, 13.5-point favorites against Eastern Kentucky. Total in that one's 57.5. Eastern should be competitive in the MAC. They get a heavy chunk of their team back from last year. They ended above 500. They lost their 4th bowl game, though, in 6 years. Eastern, solid as well. They're going to be replacing a lot of key guys on both sides of the ball. But again, I'm laying off this one. It really doesn't move the needle for me. And then the last one we'll talk about here, Charlotte laying 6.5 against William & Mary. This is my pick to be the least betting game on Friday night. It's probably the one most people will forget about. FAU manhandled the 49ers last week to the tune of 482 yards and 6.5 yards per play. Charlotte also went terrible 2 of 11 on 3rd down, couldn't make a play to save their lives. William & Mary has the best rushing attack in the conference, but again, it's FCS. I don't know how that translates. I find it difficult to be betting these weaker FBS teams against, middle of the road to stronger FCS teams. I'm going to pass on that one as well, but that'll do it for me. That's going to take care of what we need to take care of and push us on. Next time we talk is going to be Saturday. I've got 25 games that I already picked out. Those are the ones that we're going to run through. If that pisses you off, that's too bad because we went through everything on Thursday and Friday night. Good luck with you guys. Stay sharp. We'll see you on Saturday.